Lenny Brenner.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I came in right after Christopher was talking, or right before, I should say. Christopher was dumping on Carter for his crimes. So I think there's a point of common agreement, basically, between the two of you, that the United States was Satan Bajorog, the great Satan, when it supported, when Jimmy Carter supported the Iranian Shah.
Yeah.
He was Satan, the great Satan, when he supported Saddam Hussein against Iran. He was great Satan when he supported the Islamic fundamentalists against the Stalinist regime in Afghanistan, which did have women's rights, et cetera, et cetera. The question is, Brother Christopher said he believes in alchemy, that somehow America went from bad to good, whereas he objects to being accused of faith-based politics. But alchemy and faith-based politics are the same. These guys, how did these guys go, how did the United States go from a rap sheet of crimes, which Christopher fully admits, to suddenly being the savior of Iraq, Afghanistan, throwing
That's the question.
Palestine?
That's the question. All right, come on.
Very welcome question, and I may say it's always an honor to be questioned by Lenny Brenner, who, in his aspect as well as in his record, shows the finest in the Trotskyist tradition, as well as its increasingly evident limitations. I'll have to do this quickly, and I'll do it like this. Picture, if you can, you should be able to by now, the figure of the current president of Iraq. I don't know if a picture comes into your mind of President Jalal Talabani. When I first met Mr. Talabani, he was living in a burned-out town in northern Iraq in 1991, just up the road from a town that had been burned out with chemical weapons, as a large part of the landscape had been, and was trying to organize a civilian and military resistance to the regime of Saddam Hussein, as he had been doing for many years. He's a very honored and respected nationalist and socialist and Democrat in the region, with a very honorable tradition, and the only real people's army fighting in Iraq today. Don't believe what you hear about the so-called insurgents and the paid rabble of the Ba'ath Party and of Mr. Zarqawi's al-Qaeda organization. There is only one real insurgent people's army on Iraqi soil, and it's the Peshmerga of the Kurdish revolution, and it's a pleasure to be fighting on their side. Now, when I met Mr. Talabani that year, I would have given not much by way of odds that he would, by the year 2004, become the first democratically elected president of Iraq. The Iraqi people should have picked a man who was, until recently, the leader of an embattled minority that had suffered from genocide in our living and current memory, some of those weapons supplied by the United States, I might add. The leader of the party that in Iraq is the corresponding member of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan of the Socialist International, the international that Lenny doesn't support, and actually neither particularly do I, but is the one that links the social democratic parties of Europe and Africa and the Middle East. Are you going to say that Iraq is occupied by its own inhabitants when they elect a man of this caliber and quality, who any European country would be proud to have? If you don't recognize that that's a change of policy, you don't recognize changes of policy when you see them, and that's that.
We have a question for Mr. Benjamin here.
I would like to ask a question.
Anybody have a question for Mr. Benjamin?
First, I would like to ask Mr. Hitchens a
for
question.
Playthell.
Yeah, listen, I want to ask Mr. Hitchens a question first. Mr. Hitchens, I've heard you talk about the Peshmerga, many times, and the Iraqi, the Kurdish, but I just got through reading the Iraqi Constitution, and I see where they're going to have one army, period, in this new Iraq, which has to happen because no state can survive unless the state has a monopoly on organized violence. That is the nature of all power. I mean, legitimate governments must have certain support among the people, but in the end, the government must have a monopoly on coercive forces. That is the use of organized violence. So what's going to happen to the Peshmerga now in this new Iraqi state? A lot of Kurds don't want to be a part of a unitary state with the Arabs, but what do you think is going to happen?
Well, you're asking me. Well,
yeah.
Let me just inflate my lungs to their fullest extent. This chance may not come again. In my opinion, humble as it is, insular as it no doubt is, the Kurdish people of the region, who are the largest people in the world not to have a state of their own, The royal family of Qatar has its own seat at the United Nations. It's an extraordinary, the people that we think not less than 35 to 40 million Kurds of Turkey, Syria, Iran, Lebanon, and Iraq don't have a representation of any kind. I believe they have the right to secede from the countries that enclose them and to declare a state of their own. Their claim to self-determination in the area is the oldest, is the most just cause in the region, predates the struggle of Palestine, and is the longest cause of the left in the Middle East, for those of you who don't know this. But I say to my Iraqi Kurdish friends at present, who I talk to almost every day, and who are doing the work, they're doing our fighting for us. They're killing the Al-Qaeda people in Iraq. They're fighting for us as they were when they were fighting against Saddam Hussein. And it's an honor, as I say, and it's a source of pride to be fighting with such people in the same trench. I say to them, and they agree, now would not be the time to secede from Iraq. Maybe in the future, when the region has composed itself a little, and when the fascists have been beaten, we might discuss a redrawing of the borders, but to demand to secede from Iraq now is extraordinary and would be extreme, and that they take that view. They serve in the government, they serve in the army, they've given one of their favorite and most brilliant sons to the presidency. These people are fighting for an Iraq that was poisoning them and their children from the air only a decade ago. It's asking a lot of them. Don't condescend to them, okay? I won't have that.